Climate change is the greatest challenge of our time, with rising temperatures and ecosystem degradation threatening life on Earth as we know it. The world needs a global, collaborative, and inclusive approach to action on climate and nature in order to help restore the planet and protect the future. World Economic Forum Davos 2023 offered the ideal opportunity for government, business, and civil society to work together and forge partnerships for effective action. Today's leaders are faced with the greatest collective action problem of our time to address climate change and the collapse of our ecosystems. It is clear how devastating the effects of warming temperatures and ecosystem degradation will be for life on Earth. But there is also a lot the world is yet to understand how once we are past the tipping point of planetary boundaries, life for humanity will change irreversibly. Biodiversity loss and climate change are occurring at unprecedented rates, threatening humanity's very survival.
And in the last years, we have really exploited nature. And so it's really time that we give back to nature. And this hole that we've created because we have been so greedy, we should now actually fill it again and bring more harmony.
We are a cattle herders. So we move from one place to another one to find water and pastures. While we are moving, our cow dung fertile the land. We are the best company around the world who can give the examples of what is a carbon negative, what is a climate positive, because we produce meat and milk, nature positive. We do not use any chemicals on it. We do not use any things to feed them, but they are feeding the nature. So this is the lifestyle that indigenous peoples do have, because it's helped us to learn from all the nature, all the plants, and it's helped us also to live in harmony with them, and it's helped us to set up the respect between each species of the nature.
Except for indigenous people who really had this nature-positive lifestyle. No? Today we have such a footprint, no? With everything we do. Even if we come with the train, there's always a big footprint in producing this train, in producing the rails. So actually, it's not possible to have climate-positive or nature-positive lifestyle, except if you're actively investing into nature. And I think this is what we need. No, we need not just to talk about the footprint, but also the handprint.
Nature is in crisis, but there is hope. Investing in nature can not only increase our resilience to socioeconomic and environmental shocks, but it can help societies thrive. There is strong recognition within the World Economic Forum that the future must be net zero and nature positive.
We need to understand that protecting the planet and all the conditions that allow life to happen is not just a way of doing things, it's a way of being, it's a vision, it's an ideal that we have to pursue. And when we change that way of being, we also change how we're going to get there, how we will act, and everything becomes much lighter. We can protect biodiversity, we can protect traditional and original peoples. We can be more careful with water resources, forests, animals, insects, and we can understand that we are part of nature itself.
Harmony of biodiversity destroyed, birthing climate crisis and crime phases.
Dicey situation indeed, yet we carry on like a bull in a china shop.
On environment matters, we take the bull by the horns, comb the nooks and cranny of Nigeria.
Asking tough questions.
Examining challenges and opportunities.
Giving human face to the science, facts, faiths, and global agreements. It's a call for action. Don't miss it.
Join award-winning environmental journalist Jennifer Igwe and other NTA Eco reporters for Environment Matters.
At Davos 2023, the World Economic Forum launched an initiative to help unlock $3 trillion needed a year for climate and nature. Philanthropic giving totaled $810 billion in 2021, but just 2% went towards reducing emissions.
Indeed, for Gaia, it's about growing the pie. So we encourage and mobilize more individuals, institutions to come forward to champion climate and nature. It is also not about diverting funds away from social causes and other activities, but it's how we can integrate climate-nature considerations when we are giving. And finally, is around how we can be more effective in this giving to link this mighty P with public-private action so that we can move at speed and scale.
Flooding that's just amazing, not just in California, but Nigeria, Uganda, Mozambique, and different places. And somehow we leaders, to lead, have got to be able to bring folks to the table and organize ourselves around real things that are really going to make the difference now, that tip the balance from this on the one hand, on the other. We have to make it on, here's where we are. Here's where we're moving. It's all excitement. It's all a brilliant possibility, set of possibilities because of where technology and creativity and civic efforts and the marriage of young people who want a future with folks like you here who are, close to young still, but moving on. The reality is, folks, that of the 20 most affected countries in the world from climate crisis, 17 are in Africa. And if we're going to keep faith with the Global South and we're going to be real about dealing with justice in this transition, then we have to make sure we're bringing the Global South along, even though that's adaptation and that's resilience and talking about loss and damage and so forth. We have to do it because we have to build the political consensus that allows all of us to go forward.
Giving to Amplify Earth Action, Gaia, will leverage philanthropic capital to help generate the $3 trillion needed each year from public and private sources to tackle climate change and nature loss.
If we take a closer look at philanthropic money that goes to agriculture helping farmers, which is adaptation, which is climate, you will find that 2% a little bit bigger. And that is what we need to focus on. For mitigation, there are metrics that we can actually benchmark against. For adaptation, that does not exist. And therefore, we need to work collectively to be able to also push philanthropic action and money into adaptation, resilience, to avoid things that happen in Pakistan, to actually push forward. On the investable projects, and this is what we tried to put together, and I want to thank all our partners when it came to Egypt's country platform for the nexus of water, food and energy, Secretary Kerry, Mark Carney, and all the, putting this together was a very important exercise to show that if we are able to define as country what our priorities are with respect to climate and development, we'll be able to mobilize financing and put all this puzzle together so that whether it's mitigation or adaptation, we can move forward. Philanthropy is important. We as governments need to give a compelling and convincing argument. We need to be transparent with the project itself, what is needed. I believe philanthropy and MDBs need to work more closely together.
Gaia is a groundbreaking initiative supported by more than 45 major philanthropic, public and private sector partners. With the energy and cost of living crisis, the ambition of steering the planet towards a 1.5 degrees Celsius warming pathway hangs in the balance. Meanwhile, the recent agreement at the UN Biodiversity Conference, CBD COP15 in Montreal, to conserve 30% of all earth and sea looks bold but fragile in the face of a rising biodiversity crisis.
Small amount of money early on, getting the projects ready. That's the first. Second element, and I'm sure we'll get into more detail on this, others will, is around the whole world of carbon credits, biodiversity credits, debt for nature swaps, and the ability to help unlock. We need layers of capital again, to catalyze investments that need to happen to help stop the wanton destruction of our ecosystems. Remember, 11% of emissions last year were from deforestation itself. 11% of total emissions just cutting down. We need to slow, stop, reverse that, and private capital has an important, or philanthropic capital has an important role to help build something that will bring much bigger layers of private capital. We need a just transition. These changes bring widespread displacement of workers, impacts on communities. We need retraining, we need on-the-ground assistance there and now, and again, a real role for philanthropic capital. My core point is that these interventions unlock tens of billions of dollars, and I'd like to say that the private sector is going to move in and do them, and maybe they should, but we can't wait.
Current funding is slow and inadequate, and a new approach is needed to get capital flowing. Philanthropic giving can address this with unique qualities not found in other financing. It is nimble, more tolerant of risks, and is driven by values and long-term outcomes rather than quarterly returns.
We believe that collaborative philanthropy is crucial to bring together public, private, and the philanthropic sectors to address the more systemic, structural, environmental, and social challenges, which is why we set up what we've called the Philanthropy Asia Alliance last September. This is intended to pool together collective resources and expertise with the view to catalyzing comprehensive solutions to prime Asia as a force for good. It's an action-oriented alliance, and we're now actively reaching out to like-minded partners from across the world, not just in Asia, to try and come together as a coalition for that kind of change that we would like to see in Asia.
Over the next 12 months, supported by McKinsey Sustainability as a knowledge partner, Gaia will work with founding members to build momentum around 3 clear objectives: convene leaders from the public, private and philanthropic sectors to identify and target climate and nature solutions where they are best positioned to play a catalytic role. Pilot and refine funding models that can support PPPP interventions, scale up and replicate successful approaches to new sectors, regions and actors, as well as build on existing examples of success.
Curious about how government policies on healthcare are faring? Do you enjoy learning about wellness concept and the many options available? Then watch Health Options on the NTA.
Mr. President has led by example. Take the COVID-19 vaccine.
Somebody can say, hey, I woke up this morning, I felt some tingling in my hand, some weakness, my face I couldn't speak well. That's a warning stroke, and it shouldn't be ignored.
The carrots contains carotene. Tomatoes is a colored plant. It has carotene. Pepper has carotene.
50% of our diet should be green vegetables and fruits.
Join leading experts on both orthodox and alternative medicine for all the enlightenment you need for a healthier you.
Thanks for joining us on the program. I am Rabi Abdullah.
Davos 2023 also outlined key areas of climate action to avoid the tipping point and keep 1.5 degrees alive. These include accelerating climate action for the net zero transition and adapting to the climate realities of today. The latest Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) report makes it clear that the world is set to reach the 1.5 degrees Celsius within the next 2 decades. Drastic cuts in carbon emissions now are critical to avoid an environmental catastrophe.
Globally, we're heading towards 2.5, somewhere in the high twos right now. And we really must turn that around. But to turn it around, as you said, think about it. You have $1 trillion approximately being spent right now in venture capital and new investment, et cetera. But we have to get it up to 4.5 every year for the next 30 years. We have to right now be deploying the largest solar field in the world every day for the next years in order to hit the 1.5. We have to be deploying renewables 6 times faster than we are today. I know that in our country, we've got to pass a permitting bill before we can do that because you can't make a siting. And it can't take 10 years to distribute this stuff. So yes, we can do this, but there is not yet the kind of commitment broadly that is necessary to make it happen, and almost a collective will as if we were at war and ready to turn factories into solar panel producers and so forth. I think some of that's what we need.
Even as we pursue mitigation and decarbonization solutions, we must also adapt to the realities of climate change and proactively address the risks of disrupted weather cycles and degraded land, water, and ocean systems. The world must provide support, especially for the climate-vulnerable communities, to avoid a humanitarian crisis.
Emissions are not going to be cut if we don't actually keep fossil fuel underground. Let's begin with actually attacking the root cause of it. We can talk about cutting emissions all we want and come up with clever calculations and do it on paper, but if we don't keep fossil fuel underground, we will not meet 1.5. And if we look at the state of the world at, around 1.2 right now, it's already devastating. Look at what happened in Pakistan, an entire country that's been washed away.
Increasing business investment in climate adaptation efforts to $1.8 trillion could generate $7.1 trillion in total net benefits by 2030. Pledges and commitments need to be translated into concrete plans and actions. This requires dedicating resources and capital to develop strategy, build partnerships, and put in place capabilities and structures to track progress and measure performance. Investing in people, cultural change, and organizational structure will be paramount.
The technology is there
the recognition of the science is there. The costs are slowly getting incorporated in. And I just think, you know, even if you want to wish that it's, you know, those that don't want to go in that direction, I don't think there's going to be much choice, because I think the instability that will continue to be created by these impacts, real instability for people, deaths for people and ecosystems, are going to keep that pressure up.
The environmental crisis calls on a larger demand for humanity to restore our relationship with nature. Healthy and balanced ecosystems provide a social equalizer, promote happy and stable societies, and preserve and create intergenerational wealth. There is a clear benefit to investing in nature, moving towards a more nature-positive economy in areas including generative agriculture, forest economy, environment and infrastructure design, and resource circularity could add $10.1 trillion of business opportunities and create 400 million jobs globally by 2030.
But then I think it's important to look at it from a business sustainability point of view, because as a business you need to be sustainable financially, you need to be profitable in order to do good business, but you also need to be sustainable from a climate perspective. We are looking into how to develop new business models together with industries that are emitting a lot of CO2 today. Because I think that if you look at the business models end to end, and maybe not the way they look today, you can actually accomplish a lot.
Harmony of biodiversity destroyed, birthing climate crisis and crying faces.
Dicey situation indeed, yet we carry on like a bull in a china shop.
On environment matters, we take the bull by the horns, comb the nooks and cranny of Nigeria.
Asking tough questions.
Examining challenges and opportunities.
Giving human face to the science, facts, fits, and global agreements. It's a call for action. Don't miss it.
Join award-winning environmental journalist Jennifer Igwe and other NTA Eco reporters for Environment Matters.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres keyword oil firms at Davos for having peddled the big lie about their role in global warming, telling the World Economic Forum that they should be held accountable. He urged the world to end their addiction to fossil fuels, as he warned that the aspirational goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial levels was going up in smoke.
Bridging divides and restoring trust means meaningful climate action, and climate action now. The battle to keep the 1.5 degree limit alive will be won or lost in these decades, on our watch. And right now, we have to confess that the battle is being lost. So we need to act together to close the emissions gap. And that means to phase out progressively coal and supercharge the renewable revolution, to end the addiction to fossil fuels, and to stop our self-defeating war on nature. On the other hand, the developed world must finally deliver on its 100 billion climate finance commitment to support developing countries. Adaptation finance must be doubled, as it was promised in Sharm el-Sheikh, and the biggest emitters, namely the G20 countries, must unite around the Climate Solidarity Pact, in which they make extra efforts in the 2020s to keep the 1.5 degree limit alive. And it doesn't work if developed countries attribute responsibility to emerging economies and emerging economies attribute responsibility to developed countries. They need to come together, to bring together all their capacities, financial and technological, with the developed ones providing financial and technical assistance to help the major emerging economies to accelerate their renewable energy transition. Because if they don't, we will not be able to reduce emissions at the level that is necessary to keep the 1.5 degree goal, I would say to keep the 2 degree goal alive. And our climate goals need the full engagement of the private sector. Now, the truth is that more and more businesses are making net zero commitments, but benchmarks and criteria are often dubious or murky. And this can mislead consumers, investors, and regulators with false narratives. And it feeds a culture of climate misinformation and confusion, and leaves the door open to greenwashing. That's why we created an expert group on net zero emissions commitments. Recently, the group has issued a how-to guide for credible, accountable net zero pledges. And here at Davos, I call on all corporate leaders to act based on these guidelines, to put forward credible and transparent transition plans on how to achieve net zero, and to submit those plans before the end of the year. Now, the transition to net zero must be grounded in real emissions cuts and not relying essentially on carbon credits or shadow markets.